Yes, that's probably what I'm saying.
I love it. Before we start, I just want to do our little announcement. Guys, thank you for being here. Please share it out. We are doing XLM tonight. I know you guys are already aware, but there might be some people who don't know. So if you can share that out, hit that like button, post it, repost it, do all those fun things. As always, we are here just to dive into a project. We're not telling you guys to buy the project. We're not suggesting to you that this is, FOMO in right away. We are simply trying to open up the white papers and open up what's underneath the hood, so to speak. So this is as always, this is a live or a show where we want to interact with you guys. So if you can please, any questions you guys have, please share them. We would love to. I'll ask the boys at the end of the show anything you have. And if there are any XLM Stellar Maxis in here, and you want to add, and even if you're not a Maxi but you want to add to something, please feel free to do so in the chat. We do welcome it 100%. Do you guys have anything you want to say?
Let's get this show on the road. I love it.
Ding, ding, ding.
All right, guys, I'd like
Stellar.
to welcome you. I don't even know what episode this is. To Utility Unlocked. This is a show where me, Be the Change, and Caveman, we focus on one utility asset a week. And we have this perspective. We come from this approach of long-term investing. We focus on compliance, regulations, utility, some of the biggest integrations, adoptions, partnerships, and how the asset actually functions within the system that they're claiming to do. Tonight, we're going to be focusing on Stellar, and I want to thank everybody for voting on this one and participating in it, because I think that it is something that we should pay attention to. If I may, I'd like to kind of explain what Stellar is and what it was built for. Okay, great. So Stellar is built to solve a very boring problem, right? But it's a problem that essentially matters the most, right? Money, the movement of money. Stellar was built to move money. We can see here, Stellar powers borderless payments, asset tokenization, and DeFi solutions for builders, institutions, and innovators worldwide. But that's it, right? Essentially, they're focusing on the movement of money across borders, between people, between companies, institutions, with the hopes that that friction point of how the current money does move, that they can have the solution for that is much faster, cheaper than kind of the system that currently exists today. So in order to understand what Stellar is solving, we have to understand what problem is it that they're really facing, right? Today, our money still moves like it does in the 1970s, the 1980s, right? If you send money digitally or internationally, it goes through a lot of middlemen, right? There's a lot of back ends. There's a lot of reconciliation, right? Ledgers have to be upgraded and everything. But each one of that is very risky. It's very time sensitive. And there's a lot of fees that are associated to it. So Stellar's coming in with this notion that they can solve kind of the payments solution. And one of the difficult things about where we are currently in the means of payments is because it's moving on rails that are outdated, right? But Stellar's coming in with this idea that money should be able to move at the same speed as information, kind of very similar to what Ripple's doing it, right? They want to move money very fast, very cheaply, very efficiently, very predictably, and something that is the ledgers can automatically sync up and be verified. So Stellar comes in, right, with their idea of this, the digital versions of how money can exist in our current financial systems. They're not replacing the rails, but they're essentially just upgrading them. And it's not the XLM coin that is moving, but they are actually moving real currencies, right? They're moving dollars, they're moving euros, they're using pesos, any other types of financial assets. So Stellar is making it easy for these assets to move, for the people to receive these assets, for people to exchange these assets, and they're doing this very fast, very cheaply. So Stellar comes in with their token XLM. But Stellar is not requiring everyone to use XLM as money, right? In the real world, the assets that are usually being sent are your stablecoins or your tokenized deposits. These are the actual real currencies. But XLM is coming in to kind of support those, right? It's allowing these actual financial assets to move very fast, very cheaply, very efficiently. And the XLM is being utilized for these tiny transaction fees, right? It also prevents a lot of like spam on the network. And it also creates, sometimes it could create these bridges between different assets. So that's kind of the value being transferred in the digital form, or it could also be backed with a fiat based. But essentially, it is the movement of money. That's really, they're focusing on payments. And it is a big friction point that they are solving. Boys?
Yeah.
I would just add that it's the native token, otherwise known as lumens. I would go with the, or like, where it started. I actually want to talk about that before we go too deep. Do you want to talk about the founders and the tokenomics behind all of this?
Yeah. So, I mean, from what we all know, and most of us that have been in this space for a little while, this was co-founded by Jed McCaleb, and Jed McCaleb also co-founded the XRP. So that's probably where you'll have heard or seen his name from. But you mentioned it, 2014, co-founded by Jed McCaleb and it's Joyce Kim. Um, Again, this global transfer network. I don't have the tokenomics in front of me, but if you would like to take that over,
Sure.
I'm looking
Um,
at.
so for me, guys, I would just say like to fully understand the ethos of XLM, you have to know Jet, right? Like that for me is the absolutely super important thing. So first of all, Jed started off as the founder of Mt. Gox. For those of you guys who weren't around this time, and admittedly, I was barely in it at that time. It was Mt. Gox was once the Bitcoin exchange for the entire world. 70% of all Bitcoin ran through Mt. Gox for trades. I mean, so what happened with Mt. Gox? Just to give you a little backstory, it got hacked. 850,000 Bitcoin were lost. And that's kind of where everyone learned that first lesson of not your keys, not your crypto. He did, as Be the Change was alluding to, he co-founded Ripple, and then left with 9.5 billion XRP in his back pocket. And then it didn't. A lot of people think it wasn't amicable. There was a lawsuit between Ripple and him. Reason being is they were just trying to control how much, like when he sold it. So there was a settlement between the courts, and the courts basically said, "This is how you can, this is how you can sell. This is when and how you can sell your XRP, as to not dilute the market even more." As he said, Joyce Kim was the co-founder, basically the executive leadership for the foundation. Now, the reason Jed left, because I know everyone loves the whole Ripple story, XRP story, Jed felt that there wasn't an open or neutral protocol. He felt that Ripple was building a company first, bank facing protocol, and he was uncomfortable with company holding a massive influence on the XRP. So this is the ethos of why he left Ripple and why he wanted to go start his own thing. Anything going on?
Ironically, at the same time that he started Stellar with Joyce, isn't that the same time that they had the foundation? So followed the same model.
They kind of did, which actually got him into a little bit of trouble, right? As far as
Sure.
yeah. So also in the irony thing, Stripe backed Stellar in its infancy. I think there was a $3 million of funding and seed funding. And I mean, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're at your infancy as a company, that money is real, and you are going to get direction even if you say you're not going to, based on what they, their thoughts and their desires.
No, yeah, 100%. I mean, one thing that we need to, obviously, we take it into consideration, but you're going to see a lot of the same names popping up. A lot of the same investing groups and firms are going to have um, some sort of connecting piece, because obviously they're in it for making money, making sure that these products get launched and they're done the right way. But again, I was interested to hear because I know that there was and again, when it comes to tokenomics, right, we were talking about it. You can look on CoinMarketCap, or you can look. I think CoinGecko is probably a little bit better for tokenomics. The explanation on CoinMarketCap doesn't really cut it, but I think we need to talk about the total supply, right? Is it 50 billion or 55 billion? 50
Yeah,
billion.
50 billion.
50 billion. Um, and if I'm reading this correctly, so correct me if I'm wrong. 2019, that Stellar Development Foundation burned 55 billion XLM and ended that inflation.
Correct. Which
Okay.
is absolutely. Can you guys imagine that for 1 second? There goes half the supply. We're done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, again, when we're talking about how this network works, again, every transaction is a tiny fee, right? Fractions of a cent paid in XLM. This prevents spam and keeping the network reliable. The fees are not meant to generate revenue. They're meant to protect the throughput. The blurb I have here, but there's a lot of connecting pieces. There's so many different partnerships. There's a lot of these players they're in the same rooms. They're doing a lot of the same things, and when it comes to building their companies. But yeah, I mean, what else did you guys notice about the tokenomic structure, how they make money? They're tokenized. I mean, I know they're tokenizing assets on RWA, .xyz. It's another good resource that we talk about because they are partnered with some big players, right? Ondo.
They are,
Uh,
yeah.
so I was curious, what were your thoughts on how this
Well,
token works?
so the how it works for me, the one thing when I was doing the research, I was because I wanted to like for me, it's like we can blow hot air up people's asses all day long, but like what happened? Where did it come from? Where was it built? What were the problems that incurred? How did they fix those problems so they don't happen in the future? Therefore, protecting our investments, right? That's really what I personally care about. I'm sure you two feel the same way. And when I was looking into the beginnings, the problems they had, basically, as you said, it's a payment and asset issuance and this is the problem like it had at the beginning, which is what he brought from Ripple, to be completely honest, with the Stellar Consensus Protocol, or SCP, which is going to be something. The reason I'm bringing it up is because it's going to be something all three of us are going to talk about, because that protocol, it had a federated Byzantine agreement approach, which is going to be a problem, where participants chose trust sets of quorums rather than relying on mining or classical point of proof of stake validator economics. So Stellar published the SCP, and things didn't go. It was innovative in its infancy, and people were like bullish on it. The problem was it wasn't battle tested. So when they went forward with this, they kind of had a classic problem, and it's actually, there's a name for it. It's called the Byzantine general problem. I'll tell you what it is so you guys are on the same page. For people listening, several generals. Basically, the analogy is this: several generals must coordinate an attack or retreat, and they can only communicate by messenger. Okay, so that kind of gives you think of it from like a battle perspective, and there's some generals and they're going to attack the bad guys or the good or whatever you want to call them, but they only can communicate through messenger. And there's some generals who are traitors, or they want to send false messages for whatever the reason. Now, the loyal generals must still reach the same decision or a consensus. So basically what that means is there can be a bad actor in a node in this Byzantine agreement, but there can be a bad actor node, but the other nodes can still make it go forward. The problem is what happened was in 2014, there was an early fork. So essentially what happened is there were two ledgers. It broke off, right? And excuse me, guys, I apologize. It became an interesting talking point because of the consensus safety. The project later formalized the SAP and the address consensus model more rigorously. In layman's terms, the two ledgers couldn't agree on the same history, right? Some ledgers were saying this and some ledgers were saying that, and split into two different versions. And that scared people because money systems, they're not supposed to work that way, right? This happened because Stellar didn't copy Bitcoin's mining system, and the new tech, or the Federated Byzantine Agreement, it kind of failed in a way. Nodes are supposed to choose who it trusts. Those trust choices are supposed to overlap. Trust lists were poorly configured. Some nodes trusted different groups, and then the overlap wasn't strong enough. The network paused. That's literally what happened. Briefly split into multiple versions, and then the exchanges had to stop trading XLM a few times. No funds were stolen, but the confidence took a bit of a hit. Do you guys have any other thing you want to talk about with that, with the Byzantine agreement?
Not on the Byzantine agreement, but I was wondering if you, Bull, if you had anything to add on that, or if you wanted to talk about Protocol 20.
Go ahead, brother.
Okay. So, Caveman, I know you like doing your research. Do you know, like, right offhand what Protocol 20 was, what it did?
Tell me.
Okay, so it was an upgrade that turns on Soroban, Stellar smart contract platform on the live network, which means that the developers can then deploy contracts for escrow and conditional payments, token logic beyond basic issuance, and DeFi style primitives within Stellar's design philosophy. Before, why this matters, guys, is before this upgrade, it was payments and assets. After this, it's payments, assets, and programmable logic. So, introducing smart contracts is kind of, I think when I joined earlier, we were talking about quant and, chain link and all these different connecting pieces, right? Because again, it's one of those things where you have to have an interoperable world. Seeing them do this, I think they did this last year, was it, right?
February, March 2024.
Yeah. So that's, well, at least for me, is a signal to their paying attention and forward thinking and looking ahead as to what things they can integrate. I don't think that it's not going, that wasn't like a booster or a pump moment, right? Like dropping that sort of information, but it was a signal, right? It was a signal to the developers like, hey, come build here. This is what we're going to do. This is the technology that we have. So it shows up, it's always like that little brother to XRPL. This is kind of like a little growing up moment, at least for me, is what I saw. Programmable financial infrastructure, not just, this is what we're doing. We're sending money back and forth.
They also backed it up with money, like with $100 million, right? They gave a grant for developers to want to encourage them to come on. I actually, speaking of which, I did do a little deep dive. So just to go based on what you were just saying, there are, I'll get back to it. I want to talk about, so for the devs out there or people who really like this kind of stuff, the composability on Stellar shifted from concept to reality, which is what he was just talking about, be the change. Stellar has money markets, abstraction layers, wallets, oracles, and tooling that you can plug together instead of rebuilding from scratch. So you can ship faster focus and what makes your product different. Stellar's TVL, this is the part that's really cool, has increased by 193%, Monthly active developers have doubled, and RWA value has increased by 118%. The ecosystem is growing. Wallets have risen from 4 million wallets in 2020 to 7.5 million wallets today.
So,
So
boys, when we focus on projects that target this institutional onboarding, can you guys explain to the audience why a network that includes programmability is so important to their institutional clientele?
you're on mute.
Sorry, say that again.
With this utility perspective in mind, that are really institutional focused, could we explain to the audience why a network that has the ability for programmability, smart contracts, logic based decisions, why is that important for the institutions? Why would the institutions feel the need to include programmability, smart contracts, logic based decisions in with their ecosystem?
Well, I mean, just keeping it real, man. I mean, there's banks, there's institutions. They're not just going to, and I've said this for a long time. They're not just going to speculate on, the privacy aspect. There has to be, um, we're talking about money that moves the amounts in which, are massive to regular people. But really not that, really not that big when you're talking about, quadrillions. That's a number I hadn't heard before at a certain point. Um, and you need to be able to protect your assets, your clients. You need to be able to integrate with systems and governments that are also following the same sort of processes so that you don't run into issues. Um, but you have to have those issues in order for you to know what works and what doesn't. Um, and I think, we've seen over the last 10, 15 years them testing, piloting, breaking it, right, fixing it. And they do it all for, the people with the most money, and that's the institutions, the countries, and these Fortune 500 companies. So they need it to be perfect, and something that they can upgrade along the way, but it can't be wrong when you're laying that foundation. It just can't.
Yeah, I think that one of the benefits to programmability and smart contracts is it really removes the manual aspect of it, right? There's manual work when you have to reconcile it to make sure that the ledgers are up to date. But the smart contracts remove that human involvement into it. It creates that automation into it. But it also reduces, removing the humans out of it and having that automation come in also reduces the risk, right? It has very fast reconciliation, meaning that the banks or whatever institutions upgrade their ledgers right away. But it could also enforce rules automatically. So when you're talking about payments, to have a rule that's baked in saying that we will release the product once we receive that payment, to have that rule baked into it, think about the onset of the efficiency, the speed that creates. Instead of having humans, ensuring that they received the product, okay, we can send the payment. Nope, it does it automatically. But the institutions, they really do care about programmability and smart contracts. Yes.
Agreed. For me, it's quite simple. You have to build a financial stack. The rules aren't changing. It's just a platform that's changing. If you can't do the same things in legacy systems and in TradFi systems on chain, it's just not going to fly. They're not going to use you. So they have to adapt. You have to adapt, or you will not. They just won't use you. And I think projects like Stellar have realized that, and they have adapted. And this is what we're looking for when we're doing these projects. For me, and I can only speak for myself, this is what I want to see. These are the moves that your projects should be making in what's going to be an adoption cycle, and I mean a real adoption cycle, not just where we find ourselves right now in that limbo stage.
Well, and that's a really good, I have the similar sentiment when you like look at that and from an investment standpoint and adoption, like what are they doing, right? And Danelle Dixon is somebody that we should probably talk about if we, we talked about the origin story, but like currently what's happening with Stellar is you've got this individual, she's was a part of the foundation, but you see her in the White House, vying for kind of doing the same things that Ripple was doing, right? Proactive, speaking to the SEC, speaking outwardly, publicly, and then that's when you see those types of individuals sitting on a stage, Franklin Templeton, working with them and all these different things. So I think it's really important to and I've said this for, I mean, probably all of this year and a little bit of last year was, if we're looking at the United States being the crypto capital of the world, right? And that statement, that doesn't mean that we're not going to interact with all of the rest of the world, right? It just means that is the push, right? And I really love the homegrown, made in America story, right? Who doesn't love that story? So when I was doing independent research, I did like that. I always found it suspicious. Little segue here, but that I was like, well, nobody knows who Satoshi is, and I'm like, and these places are located in other places. Like, what happens then? But if it's under the United States umbrella and it's here onshore, and they're proactive about working with the governments and the institutions for all this stuff, and that means that they're not really hiding anything, so that gives me a bit of solace. But again, we're still talking about financial players, and they're always going to make their money. So but yeah, continue on. I digress.
William, do you have anything?
All right. Yeah. So Stellar, right? When we start talking about it being utilized for payments, right? We have to understand what they are actually doing, right? Settlement. That's essentially what they're doing. And I don't want you guys to kind of get confused with settlement. Settlement, at the very simplest terms, just means that the transaction is finished, right? So that's essentially what Stellar is enabling is these instant settlements. Okay, so on the Stellar network, whenever a payment settles, that's it. It's final, right? I don't know if they had introduced a clawback feature. As I'm aware, I don't know if they have. But that's the benefit of blockchain is that instant settlement. Okay, there's no more the weeks of waiting, the delays. Everything is pretty much instant. So Stellar can settle payments in seconds. But then you also have to understand how this thing is actually being utilized. And I believe that the star for Stellar is really the stablecoins, right? The XLM is being utilized to move the money, but the actual movement of money is the real assets out there, right? It's your stablecoins, your tokenized fiats. That's what the institutions are comfortable using. So Stellar's not coming in forcing them to use XLM. They're just allowing them to use the existing money that they're already using. And I think that puts them in a position to have these types of partnerships that are coming on and onboarding, because they're not coming in telling them that they got to rip out everything or that they're anti-bank. They're allowing these participants to build on top of the things upon which that they're already using, right? Identity, KYC, compliance, all of that. The network is really just kind of focused on the settlement aspect of it. Stablecoins are really kind of the big winner for this. This is really what we kind of have to focus on, because Stellar is one of the major networks that supports USDC, right? That's the stablecoin that's backed by Circle, and it's a highly regulated, compliance-first stablecoin, and they're moving on Stellar rails. There's a lot of I guess before I jump into another stablecoin, do you guys want to talk about anything but with USDC with this particular partnership or integration?
I just wanted to mention the clawback stuff, if we could go back to that. So because you've heard this before, and I don't know if a lot of people understand what the clawback is, but um, when you say decentralized network, you think, um, you think that there's some freedom in that, right? But they have a feature, which is an issuer, the issuer of that asset um, can actually make it a setting so that uh, if there was any fraud or a court order or any other reason why they like theft, right? They could, in theory, claw that back, but it's not the network itself; it's the issuer of the asset. So it is not a way to Stellar's controlling everything. It literally protects the issuer. So if they need to, like we're talking about stable coins, issued by a bank or regulated entity, reclaiming tokens is a legal necessity, would be something that you would see. Tokenized real world assets issued to accredited investors with compliance requirements and fraud recovery scenarios where issued tokens were mistakenly or illegally distributed.
Thank
And
you
that
for
was an
that.
upgrade in 21. Yeah, 21.
With regards to the USDC, I would probably give a real example with MoneyGram, with what you're talking about, if you want to.
Yeah. So this was one of the really big partnerships came out. This was 2021 that we could see, and this is one of the best, maybe one of the best examples that we have for real world utility being utilized with Stellar, which is MoneyGram. MoneyGram and the Stellar Development Foundation, they had this partnership where they wanted to explore blockchain-based settlements. So they were allowing the onboarding and offboarding of USDC with cash, and they were using this with Stellar Rails. Sorry. Essentially, what this had unlocked for MoneyGram was that anybody can essentially walk into a MoneyGram location. They could turn their cash into a digital dollar, and they could send it with Stellar. And then they can have that converted back to cash at another MoneyGram location. And this is one of the clear indications that, yes, Stellar is being utilized within an ISO 222 financial compliance messaging framework. MoneyGram is sending USDC live on Stellar Rails today. So yes, Stellar, of course, is ISO 222 compliant, but we see that with its real world utility because we know that real cash, real value is moving across the Stellar Rails, and they're doing it from an enterprise grade name like MoneyGram. This was an absolute huge announcement for it, and MoneyGram is a very big name.
Just as far as like value wise, just so everybody knows, they have 30 million American in total transactions Stellar using MoneyGram. And just they really are using MoneyGram, or they're using Stellar to be basically an on-off ramp for them, right? And so, like we've just said, it's using USDC on Stellar, not XLM directly, which is for MoneyGram very important to know the differentiation. Yeah.
So, have you seen the U.S. Bank one, the partnership?
PwC.
Yeah,
Who is it?
yeah. Price Waterhouse Coopers. It's their institutional credibility, like in regulated finance. The partnership with Price Waterhouse Coopers, which gave them the, I guess the ability to pilot programs. One with U.S. Bank, which is currently active, and then we were just talking about again, a lot of these names are going to pop up like we said earlier. Franklin Templeton, tokenized investment products, live and confirmed. Archax, Archax. I gotta figure out how to say that. Archaic.
Yeah.
I don't know. But that we were talking about it last week with XDC tokenization partner, huge strategic collaboration. And then a major U.S. bank would be U.S. Bank Corp. That would be a stablecoin pilot program, which I think that they waited I forget what year. I think it was after the Genius Act, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of these things started happening after that. So
Wisdom Tree as well, I believe, was, oh, excuse me, it was Franklin Templeton. I believe that they were one of the first traditional financial groups out there to really kind of enhance and adopt tokenization. They started to tokenize a money market fund with Stellar, which was a big indicator that tokenization RWAs on Stellar was not only possible. Correction? Is there a correction?
In Europe, I would just add that part.
It was one of the key indicators that institutions are looking at Stellar for RWA capabilities. Another partnership that I think is worth mentioning is IBM building WorldWire on Stellar.
It's a bit of a punch in the face, though, a little bit. Go ahead, let's hear it.
Yeah. So IBM's WorldWire, they decided to use Stellar technology for its settlement layer for cross-border payments, and they were doing this for between institutions. And this was another big one, right? So we also have enterprise payment infrastructure for Stellar, showing its real-world utility being utilized at a massive scale. And IBM's WorldWire was evolving over times, but they chose Stellar's technology as the payment rails to kind of unlock that enterprise-grade payments for Stellar. I thought that this was also a very big one. Why is it a punch in the face? I'd like to hear that take.
Well, it didn't actually go in. So the year is 2017 or 2019. I didn't really look, to be honest, in that range. And they were, I mean, in essence, they were before their time, right? Like, let's be honest, traditional banks weren't ready. And then because they weren't ready, they didn't actually go anywhere. So yes, a big company showed that Stellar had the capability of potentially being a world player in moving of money, but the banks weren't ready. So it kind of fell on its face or fizzled out.
Do we have an update of what WorldWire is currently doing today?
I mean, they might be selling Cobb salads.
This was another big stablecoin issuer, right? WireX. This is one of the most recent ones. This was November of 2025. But essentially, it's another indicator that stablecoins are being really utilized for Stellar. This is another massive one, right? PayPal, PYUSD. This was really big as well, right? Everybody knows PayPal. And of course, Stellar is the rails that they're planning to utilize. But I believe that this is pending regulatory approval.
Yeah.
Right, by the NYDFS.
So, going back to the IBM thing, from IBM, they decided to go in a different direction with their own internal, like as a company. So they shifted their strategy and operating WorldWire as a standalone production service and an open source parts of the code so the community and other developers could build from it instead. This is from IBM. The focus moved toward blockchain accelerators and client solutions rather than running a global network itself. So they focused on themselves as opposed to solving the global problem. But it gives it credibility nonetheless, because to be selected and looked at by one of the largest tech companies in the world for something like this, and the fact that Stellar and Xlm is still around, those old Dino projects.
Yeah. So if just for people who are tallying how many stablecoins they're in partnership with or have on their ecosystem, you have USDC, you have EURC, which is the European one, you have GYEN, which is Japanese yen stablecoin, you have AUDD, which is Australia, and then we just talked about PayPal, PYUSD, which is pending approval. There's a couple of other ones, but those are the major ones that's currently on their ecosystem.
Yeah. So, I mean, integration after integration, we see what Stellar is really going after, right? Some of these ecosystems, they're focusing on institutional liquidity. Some of them are focusing on trade finance, others on interoperability. Stellar kind of comes in and they're really focusing on payments and settlement. And they're doing this, whether it's fintechs or remittances or stablecoin issuers, But it's the upgrade to the financial system that has this large friction point to it. RWAs is also very, very popular on Stellar as well. Are you guys
Speaking of
ready
that,
to kind of get into the cons?
so speaking of the RWA, before you do that, there's a small one, but it's still a good one. Like I love this for me. Just the RWA, the idea of where we're headed with RWAs, I love. And so when I see a system, an ecosystem like this starting to go down that avenue, so earlier this year, a Stellar House Miami Ed, I'm not going to say his last name. We're just going to call him Ed, Mr. Ed. Mr. Ed, which is the founder and CEO of Red Swan Digital Real Estate, announced that it would bring 100 million in tokenized commercial real estate onto the Stellar network. So real properties in Miami going on to Stellar Network. Love that. I'm a big fan of all things tokenization. So specifically real estate, I should say. So yeah, I mean, it's also including institutional grade multifamily and hospitality properties. So it's not just, your home or your single dwelling home. But yes, cons. Let's talk about cons.
Get your mic ready.
Testing one. You guys there? Hello, hello. Okay, so we forked. We had a near forking. We almost forked it off. That's not a great thing. That's one that it's gonna live in the back of people's minds. Obviously, people know that Bitcoin and BNB Cash went their separate ways, and that was a hard fork where it's now two entities. In essence, we did talk about how they did update the how the validators interact with each other now and how the nodes correspond, but that's still probably in the back of a lot of people's minds. That's one. What's one for you guys?
I think my biggest con for it is even if the Stellar usage grow, that doesn't necessarily mean demand for XLM grows. I think that's
Yeah,
one
this
of the
is
biggest
utility
cons
unlocked,
to it.
guys. We're trying to unlock it.
Look,
Okay, why do you? Okay, I'm gonna push back. I'm gonna defend the XLM people out there. Why do you say that, bully?
because a majority of the payments are using stablecoins, right? When you look at what XLM is primarily being utilized for, it's the little transaction fees. It's the actual participation in the network. That doesn't necessarily then mean that XLM is needed for the. It doesn't necessarily reflect to the amount of volume that's being transacted on the network.
Okay, well we're gonna have a little argument here. Go ahead, be the change first. No, you want to be the third person, the third wheel on this one?
Well, I mean, think about it like this, right? From the perspective of who we're talking to, like you have to understand what lane you're in. When all of this is said and done, like you'll see, the people that believed in Bitcoin 10 years ago, obviously, are benefiting, right? So it depends from your perspective as a listener. There's 100 people in here, right? Uh, are you looking for is this that project that 10x is real fast because X, or is this the type of, utility infrastructure conversation that might take time to grow, right? And that's another one of those things that you need to consider, because if you're looking at it from the what is actually being solved, what is this, what are the chances that the utility is as large as it gets to show, what people believe it to be, which could be, an asset that's, that continuously grows in price. And ask yourself, are you trading the asset or are you investing long term? For me, I think there's a higher odds for all of this stuff to work out long term, but it depends on where you stand today. Do you have patience for that? They don't really care about hype, right? Stellar, I don't see too much of anybody really talking about Stellar XLM, but still they're still there, right? And they're I don't want to FUD at, a company or projects that's in the top 50, or the top 100. Does that mean, and this is out of 10,000 projects, this is something that you can't knock, right? But again, what is the timeline and the time frame that could happen? I don't believe personally that, that is an immediate response. I think it would take a little bit of time. But again, we still got to see what that Clarity Act says.
So I get what you're saying with regards to the stablecoins. If it's just moving stablecoins and we are just using lumens to burn as a net, gas fee, so to speak. What happens in the case? Someone in there said the same thing as XRP, and I think that's where the disconnect happens. But in that same token, pun intended, I want to ask you a question. So there is a there is a partnership with Yellow Card, which is an African financial app. Okay, so let's assume they have this. I'm putting words in Africa's mouth right now. But let's say they have like the African stablecoin. I don't know if they do or not. That's not the point. The point is this, that I don't want the African stablecoin. And the money, and then there's a bank over in America who's funding or sending funds over to Africa or vice versa. You're going to have to, if it's through the Stellar network, are they not going to have to do the same thing, which is almost transfer that into the lumens and then over to whatever stablecoins over in America? Much like what we say about XRP?
Yes. So XLM can be used as a bridge asset between two illiquid assets. Absolutely. But there is a trade-off with that. So you don't necessarily need to. Yes, let me put it to you this way. XLM, yes, is required for the Stellar network to operate, but it's not required to carry the value of being transferred. So if you have an institution that's moving billions of dollars, that doesn't necessarily equate to billions of dollars of XLM being needed for that. But yes, it can operate as a bridge asset.
And therefore, the value would have to show. In theory, we don't have a magic.
Yeah, if there's $1 million that moves on Stellar, it's $1 million in USDC, not $1 million in XLM. Right. So yes, it does support it, but it doesn't actually capture that $1 million.
Yeah, and when I think of that, obviously from an investor standpoint, you obviously go, okay, well, if it's being used and it's being used by these huge banks, but you're not seeing it price appreciation. You're not seeing what the value of the token itself is, right? That to me, again, being around as long as it has might, and again, this is just me talking here, right? So based on some of the parameters, and again, this isn't law yet, but on what the Clarity Act is going to show us is what's a digital commodity asset and what's not, right? And what's a security, digital security, et cetera. So, and how those things are used in different lanes, right? Who regulates it? So the CFTC would obviously, have oversight on that, and one of them is a mature blockchain. And I would say that even though they've had their issues and tested, right, they did it with minimal issues, especially when you had the protocol 20 upgrade. And then you start to see all of these, you see the CEO, speaking in Congress and really being on that championing that perspective. So, for me, it has the possibility of being treated as a digital commodity. How that is used on an everyday basis is going to be really difficult to see in real time. I like seeing the partnerships. I like seeing the fact that they're embedding in themselves in the trenches of traditional finance and regulation, and still holding weight, right? And to me, XLM was always kind of like in the beginning was, like, well, I'm going to go with a lot of utility tokens, and again, there's many of them out there, and Ethereum inherently is a utility token in itself, but Xlm was always one of those ones where I was like, if in an interoperable world they're all working together, I think it benefits, but I just don't know to what degree and how large and how large that scale would be.
Well, you guys are just talking about payments only. What about the real world asset tokenization? There's like 33.9 billion already on chain for Stellar.
Yeah, and then it's what is it? They're talking 873 trillion dollars of real world assets to be tokenized. In what time frame? 5 years, 10 years? I don't know, right? But it doesn't, it does impress me to see them going in that direction. I always thought long ago that there would be some type of, especially with the XRPL IOUs and obviously the research that you do on that and what tokenization actually is. To see Stellar leaning all into that and working with all of the big projects and big banks, I'm I like seeing that kind of thing. It's just something that makes me go, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you know, paying attention to the numbers, paying attention to the USDC, paying attention to these tokenized funds, how big they get. I mean, I think it could get massive, like, especially with the ones that have been trusted. That's the one thing that I think people forget. We talked about this in the beginning, like why would these banks and institutions need this sort of thing, programmable finance? Um, and I see that being what they've kind of stood behind the entire time.
I think I can address the XRP comparison because people end up comparing it as well. XLM's not broken, guys, right? It's doing exactly what it was designed to do, but you have to separate the models, right? The if you have to separate the economic model between the two. If you don't, then you're going to end up asking the wrong questions. There's two separate payment networks with two very different economic models. XRP was designed to be economically unavoidable when transferring the value, but XLM wasn't in that way. And I guess in order to understand that, you have to see what happens with the volume, what happens to the token when the volume comes onto the network. With XLM, if there's more payment volume, that means that there's potentially more stablecoin usage. If there is a lot of stablecoin usage, then that doesn't necessarily equate to a large amount of XLM demand. When you want to compare that to something like what Ripple is doing, if there is more payment volume in that ecosystem, then more XRP is required for that usage. If more XRP is required, then there's more demand for that liquidity. And if there's more demand for that liquidity, then that creates price pressure for the actual asset. So it's two different economic models that they're addressing. We have to make the clear distinction of it. Yes, they're both doing payments, but how these assets are actually being utilized within the system, it's either they could be avoidable or they're required for it.
Sorry, I'm writing down a statement for you guys.
Yeah, so I mean, and again, we've been talking for a little while here. So again, there's a lot of people here, 125 people. Thank you guys for being here. If you guys have questions, feel free to reach in. I see a couple of people in there asking questions, and we'll get to them for sure. But we want it to be an active conversation, not centered around this versus that, but on Stellar XLM and that network in itself. Afterwards, we'll probably get into what types of tokens we'll select. But at this stage, I think we are looking at why this project exists, how long it's been around, the partnerships that have been, increasing over the years, and what, longevity means for projects, right? And as Bully said, their networks are different. They serve different purposes. But yes, that's like saying like platinum is shiny and so is gold, so they're the same. So they should be worth the same. I don't see it that way. They're gonna be in their own lanes, but in a multi-chain world, I mean, that's what you can expect. And that's just for me. But anyone have any questions? I see
I have a
Michelle's.
question for you guys.
What's up?
So right now there's 20 billion lumen in the open market. 30 billion is controlled by the foundation. As the act is currently written, you're not allowed more than 20%. Am I right with the 20%? What do you see happening with Stellar?
A DAT, probably. That's a digital asset treasury, but I don't know if they're going to go in that direction. It's a really good question.
Because they haven't addressed it.
No, but there's also, at least from my perspective, I see it as there's going to be, voting on it, right? There's a reason why technically the foundation has that supply. Isn't it separate from the company itself? I mean, again, this is where I know we're talking semantics, but literally it's the difference between like the law or not, right? Like, are you doing it by the book? Well, what does the book say? Right? And they wrote portion of the book and they're going to vote on what's going to happen next. 20% or more of the digital asset voting power. Okay.
Yeah, I thought of that for a second. Okay, so guys, if you have any questions, now is the time to put in the chat. I do have a couple that they've written. And I to be honest, this question, I don't know if I even agree with the question, but I'm going to say it. And Bully, feel free to fact check, or be the change, feel free to fact check. The question was, why did MoneyGram choose Solana over Stellar? I know, that's why I said I don't even know if I agree with it. In my research, go ahead, you guys answer it.
I mean, they chose Solana, but not as like they're piloting, right? It's not 100%. And Solana's using Western Union. That's right. That's the difference. People get confused. I get it confused all the time. MoneyGram, Western Union. MoneyGram was supposedly for XRP. XRP and Ripple had that issue with MoneyGram. I believe it might have been Western Union. I don't know. But those are honestly like those partnerships matter a lot for sure, but they're like small potatoes to me when I think about some of these other players in the game. Really, my focus isn't on the attention of MoneyGram or Western Union. It was 3-4 years ago.
So just to emphasize what FM Din 73 said, yes, you're right. And what NB Change said, absolutely correct. MoneyGram, Xlm, Solana, Western Union. So we nailed that one.
You really gotta understand the chains and what their use cases is and what they're actually being utilized for. Stellar is for your settlement, right? You got to understand what the assets are being utilized for. You can't just read a headline and assume that one over the other without actually understanding what these assets, how these assets act within the system, and two, what are they utilizing it for?
We did, Brendan. Do you want to go over that again, or do we quickly?
Sounds like he knows. Brendan's a smart cat. I know what he knows.
Okay. So Bully, you kind of talked about it already. I do want to hit it home though, so that people don't get the X's pitted against each other. Why XLM if we have XRP was a question that was brought up.
I think
Chain?
Good questions, man. Good questions.
I think remittances are very, very popular with the Stellar network. But you also got to be paying attention to what they're doing, right? You have a lot of stablecoins being deployed and utilized and moved across the Stellar network. Yes, XLM can be utilized as a bridge asset. That's just kind of similar to it, but there is a very big distinction between the two. They're not necessarily competing with one another, but they're just being utilized for two. The way that the network is operating is in two very different means. One of them is going to capture the volume on the network, and the other one is kind of just there as an enabler for the settlement to actually move. A lot of people say that Stellar is for that retail, right? That peer-to-peer, but we've seen that they've expanded beyond that peer-to-peer. That narrative is it's outdated. It's not really relevant anymore. We've seen the institutional onboarding come on. So that the idea that XRP is for the banks and Stellar is for the peer-to-peer, that couldn't be further to the most updated truth with what's going on with Stellar.
Yeah, and that's a good point because that was a lot of the narrative, right? And we got to look at, what's the hype and what's real, right? And 3 years ago, it was always that, right? It was, they're using banks, they're using this, XLM is going to be used for X money. Look at the logo. It's just like the Grok logo, right? Like none of that stuff is confirmed. It's all only speculation, okay? However you want to frame that, however you want to look at that or think about that, right? But when we, and I think, when we talked about the tokenomics, like there's no staking, right? There's no yield farming or anything like that on this network. Did you guys come across any of that? Because I saw none of it. Okay, so when you don't see any of that, it ties really well with decentralized finance in the version of what the Clarity Act is currently written as, and that it sits within the digital commodity status. Because it's a financial rail. It is not, just a peer-to-peer system. And the network does not promise returns or, selling the access to profits or to distribute yield. This is an infrastructure play, right? Which is why, sure, there was MoneyGram, but then when you have Wisdom Tree, Franklin Templeton, banks, the fifth largest bank in the U.S. from the commercial space, which is U.S. Bank, those are going to be your light bulb moments, right? As opposed to this is just something that people are going to be sending money back and forth. At least that's my thought process on that. But you guys can care to chime in on what that is, because I know the token distribution was kind of the
Okay, so just because this is live and we are gonna catch some things, and I just caught something. With regards to my question was, can you yield farm with XLM? And the answer is actually yes, but it's very different from Ethereum style yield farming. With Soroban, what's called? Soroban. Smart contracts, you can write programs that lock XLM or tokens. You can create DeFi apps like lending, staking, and simple yield farming. However, Stellar doesn't yet have as many big liquid DeFi apps as Ethereum, so options are limited.
So I would be weary with that, right? At least from my perspective, when I read that, there's nothing that is screaming to me like, oh, it means that they're looking to go into that direction, but there's nothing that is, if I saw something on X or Twitter or whatever, and it's like, oh, this is your yield farming opportunity, I would be checking 3, 4, 5 times to make sure you understand what you're doing with that. I just wanted to throw that disclaimer out there.
I do know that the AMM was relevant with it. just seeing who wrote this article, it was Justin Rice. That was the individual from the Stellar Foundation that I was talking to. We got his name. Conversations with Evan that we got his name. That's who it was. But this was another means for a yield opportunity. The same thing with XRP. You can possibly earn a yield utilizing it, but it's through the automated market maker. It's very different than staking. You really have to do your homework and understand how the balance between the two assets that you're offering on there actually can earn a yield, because the risk is impermanent loss, but it's really no different than you holding your assets in your portfolio. You experience impermanent loss every day as the assets fluctuate. But the AMM was another way for yield on Stellar.
So it was a comment, and I liked it, and I want to know what you guys thought about it. In the white papers, nowhere in any white paper does it say that you will make money on these coins. What would you say to that comment?
Can you say that one more time?
Nowhere in the white papers does it
For
say
any of the coins, any of the projects,
for any coins, including XLM, does it say you will make money?
Well, of course not, because if that was the case, then they would have to abide by the security framework. You know,
bingo.
if you have a corporation that is promising something for you with the return of your investment, then it has to comply with the security laws, and therefore the SEC. That's ultimately not what they're going after. They're going after the jurisdiction of the CFTC with the hopes that they get classified as a commodity. So you're not going to find that in any white paper where there is this promise, this exchange of an obligation, because if they did, then it would be under the jurisdiction of the SEC, therefore classifying it as a security.
Correct. Agreed. Is Stellar a bridge asset, and what qualifies that? It's kind of what we touched on a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we could go through it again. Stellar can be utilized as a bridge asset, but it's a little bit of a different bridge asset than you may see in terms of XRP. They both can be implemented in for these liquid pairs. It can be a bridge asset, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the token is necessarily required when the volume is moving through the network. You know, like more usage on the on the network doesn't equate to the asset being utilized. In terms of the bridge asset, yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, and then what did you say here too? So that means great tech won't ensure a great investment. Yeah, I mean, I would agree, right? The technology, there's been technology that was ahead of its time, that didn't work out, and then there's a resurgence, obviously with a different company or product. It happens a lot, um, but I do think we're talking about, especially like I think the best way to be bullish about this, if you're bearish or if you think there's got to be some way that none of this is going to work out, right? Is watch the video of Sandy Kaufman from Franklin Templeton talk about protocols and the value in which they could become based on what it is. That is the simplest 8 minutes of your life. There is also an article on Franklin Templeton's website, which we covered a couple of weeks ago, thanks to Blockchain Bully. The protocols in themselves, it is the most exciting thing for all of these companies, institutions, banks, et cetera, which is why they're all doing what they're doing today. And why all of this was speculative 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, no longer, right, becoming written into law. So I would just take the time to understand that there's a reason why only 7% of the global population has access to crypto, not 97% of the global population. I hope that helps with the confusion.
I love it. That's it for the questions, guys.
I don't have any questions. Do you guys have any questions? I saw one here. Uh, what do we? Do you guys go over the one senator recently buying IBIT? No, run up. We're just covering XLM, brother. I appreciate you for being here. Um, and
Are protocols for
all you guys that have
corporations
been here
being built
talking this
on
entire time.
base? Can someone pin Nancy name?
I don't know who that is.
Yeah. All right, guys. I don't know about you, but that was a mouthful for me. Okay. So let's. Are you bullish on XLM, or are you? I don't think you can be bearish. Are you reserving judgment? Damn. Okay. Don't talk all at once.
I am. I'm very bullish on it. It covers the three things for me as to what leads to an educated investment. It has the utility, it has the adoption, it has the compliance. I mean, I'm a fan of the project. I like it. I think that it's going to do very successful, and I think that there's a reason that it's in the top 25, the top 100. There's a reason that this asset is here. It's definitely something that we would encourage you guys to continue to explore further in your education and your conviction in it. But I think that the conviction month over month, year over year keeps getting solidified for me.
Yeah, I mean, I would say yes, bullish for sure. This isn't going to be something where you're going to hear price predictions on this channel, right? We talk about um, how these things might be used or adopted, right? And timelines. We're at that, I think, that chasm stage where we went from innovation to implementation, right? And as implementation happens, it's those who are forward thinking that look to position themselves for the long term, right? And, again, 22 cents. Imagine the people, if you said that was the price of XRP right now, right? What people would be doing. Or, any coin within reach of that, right? But that's not what we're here for. We're not talking about that. We're talking about, the long-term effects. And again, we'll see it change, but Clarity Act has this thing deemed a digital commodity. The relationships that I've seen it with World Economic Forum, all the rest, right? We've read through the papers, we looked at all the relationships. The signal to me is that they're integrated with global financial usage, not just US, right? And that's the piece for me, right? Yes, the United States is a global powerhouse when it comes to finance, but it can't do it alone. And in a multi-chain world and an interoperable world, like, yeah, I mean, I think um, they're set up for real infrastructure. So I'm bullish, man.
I do have a caveman. Please give an answer, but I do have a question for you guys. But please go ahead with yours.
I mean, even though we are a utility show talking about the big scope, like the big picture, you just have to look at a chart to know that there's value there. Um, Zoom out, you'll see what I'm talking about. So on a short term, like blinders, I'm super bullish. With regards to the project itself on a macro level, like where I believe we're headed in the future, I think XLM will be a big part of it, and therefore I'm super bullish on this project. I think they're doing all the right things. So,
And again, for those watching that might have just joined, we are not paid to do this or to talk about this. As our own opinions. I've been in the space since 2021, and a caveman before me. And Bully has been phenomenal at showcasing the research, right? We're trying to understand, where we're headed, right? And only to do that, we kind of have to see where we started from, right? And kind of go through that history book. Although it's short in its inception, what we can see it becoming, you need a little bit of imagination, and you could say, hey, I could see this probably not being a hype coin. You're not going to see people saying like XLM to 10,000, but could it come and be integrated long term? I mean, all of the signals say yes to me.
This was a document from the World Bank, 2021. This is central bank digital currencies for cross-border payments. And in here, can I get you guys' takes on the reference to Ripple and XLM as a stablecoin? Of course, we don't know that they are a stablecoin. They're not equated to the $1 aspect of it. But the World Bank has called them a stablecoin, even though we know that that's not true. But what would be your take as to these two assets being mentioned within this World Bank documentation? If I don't know if you guys have seen this before.
First question.
Mm-hmm.
When was that document released? What year?
This was 2021.
2021. And that's around the time Ripple created their stablecoin white paper. They didn't create stablecoins, but they created the CBDC stablecoin white paper, right? You can see how these things have changed and grew over time, especially like tokenization, right? The IOUs was something that was created early on in the XRPL that happens to be basically the exact same thing of what tokenization is, which is why they get tokenized in the XRPL. And when people were saying that about a year ago that it couldn't, we know that they can, which is why they partnered with all these places to do that. What do I see when a World Bank says that? They've been in this process for years. I know that the World Bank has been looking at Ripple for a long time. I've always seen Stellar right next to it, right? Same thing with DTCC. So I see that you say that they're calling it a stable coins for cross-border payments. I have to read that document. It's really hard for me to see that. But what would I say to somebody that says that they are just stable coins? Was that the question?
Well, what the document is saying is stablecoin refers to a class of digital currencies that are stable in terms of their price. Two digital currencies that fall into that category are XRP and XLM. I don't even know what the fuck to make out of that, but we know it's not a stablecoin, so I can only sit here and kind of wonder what did the World Bank refer to and why was this included?
I'll take the minute if you want. I don't mind. Nothing good from this conversation. That's why I said I'll take it. Okay, this is inference only. This is not facts in any way, shape, or form. My interpretation of that would be this, and it's kind of what I've always thought, anyways. If you're gonna have this is why I pushed back on you, Bully, by the way, just so we're clear earlier. If you're gonna have a bridge asset, it kind of has to build its price point and then sort of, I'm not gonna say stabilize, but near stabilize. Slowly and up to the right, sure, but slowly. So for me, the inference there, and this is just me, this is not the show, or this is not Be the Change or Blockchain Bully. For me, that goes in line with my thinking, which is, increase in value, and then whatever that is, I don't know, and then sort of, level off, and then maybe slow it up. That's how I take that. That's how I interpret that. Is XRP or XLM a stablecoin? Absolutely not.
Yeah, well, we know it's not a pegged price. The only thing that I could, if I was critically thinking through it, well, we know that they are being utilized for settlement. I wonder if they're referring to them as I wonder if they're referring to them within this category because they are exposed during that payment for seconds, and maybe during that time, the the price is stable enough in order for them to actually complete that settlement. That's what I'm wondering. I wonder if they're not saying that the price is fixed, but because they are settlement assets and the time of settlement between the assets are used, there's not that volatility. So maybe they behave stable during that settlement. It's the only thing I could think of. Don't know.
Well, I mean, think about it. If it's a
Like I
bridge
said.
asset, right? If it's a bridge asset and you're taking it from euro, okay, and you're using the euro stablecoin, it needs to have the intermediary, right? And uh, this is the kind of stuff where, like, I know Binance picked this up and published a news article in February of 2024, citing this as a way to FUD XRP and XLM, right? Classifying them as stable coins. This particular blog or document, how many pages? It looks like a lot. There's a lot.
46.
46. Okay. Um, from what I was able to pull here, just took the document. Says here from the World Bank. This is the central bank digital currencies for cross-border payments. Yep. Okay. Same one. This type of content is academic and describes crypto payment technologies, not a classification of XRP, XLM as stablecoins. What exists is a much looser contextual reference to their roles in cross-border payments, and those have sometimes been misinterpreted or misreported online. Here's what the actual evidence shows. World Bank documents do mention XRP and XLM in context for cross-border payments. In a 2020-21 review, called them an example of cryptocurrencies used for facilitating value movement across networks and theoretical discussions about cross-border payment innovation, but they're not described as stablecoins in these documents. It says the World Bank studies and comments on blockchain technologies and cross-border payment innovation. Reports might refer to these assets as an example of a crypto asset in payment context. Ripple or Stellar technologies are useful for interoperability research and broader implications of digital currency systems. They do not designate them as stablecoins nor endorse them as such.
The real question is, why the fuck do they do that? Like,
I mean,
why would you want to create that kind of ambiguity?
I don't think it was ambiguous at the time, too. You got to think 2021, what was happening in the world. How many people were reading those documentations, right? When was that brought out? I mean, again, there were people doing the research. I'm sure there's many people in this room that have been down that rabbit hole. You look at the terminology, right? Like stable coins, CBDCs, kind of the same thing, but not really, right? Um, digital asset treasury was a thing that didn't exist before this year. So I think they were talking about the future. They were talking about the technology and how it could be used. But again, that's not, I think the definitions are evolving and changing over time. Same thing with tokenization. Tokenization was a coin to terminology that Larry Fink has been utilizing quite a bit, which is actually a technology that was built in 2012, which we'll probably talk about when we do the XRPL episode.
Speaking of which, that's a great bridge. Congratulations, guys. That was XLM. Awesome. Now is everyone's favorite time where you all get to fight over what we're going to do next week. And if you're saying ZBEC, you weren't here recently. We've done ZBEC, and it's on Blockchain Bully's YouTube channel. Now is the time for you. Okay, and let me. I see what you guys are up to down there. No, we stop. Time out, Solon Spartan. That's enough out of you. I know what you guys are doing. The same people are trolling by putting in multiple times the same thing. Just do it once. I haven't even started taking tracks, so you might as well stop right now. Just do it once. Put it in starting right now. What you want us to do next week. 3, 2, 1. Starting now. We got narrow path pick 1 for XRP. That's where I'm starting. You guys can help me too, please. Oh God, that's a lot of XRPs.
Chicago's winning. I'm just saying. Receiver network is only 2 cents. That's funny. He's not wrong. It's only 2 pennies the entire time. Ooh. Thanks, Ron.
All right. Well, this is pretty going to be really easy. Okay, I'm going to boil it down to the final 3 here. The final 3. This is not by me. It's you guys. Is XRP, DAG, or XDC? So XDC.
We did XDC, you silly goose.
No, not XDC. The other one. XR. You're right. They did say it. Okay, guys, don't say XDC. We did it. Sorry, I was just writing it down. So DAG or XRP are, and the other one is Canton. I had enough. So Canton, XRP, or DAG in the chat right now. Go ahead. Those 3 and only those 3. If you put anything else in, we're not going to put it down.
One comment only.
Boom. There was like 70 that just went by right there. All XRP. Canton, I like Canton. You guys saw my story.
Yeah.
I wish there was a way we could do an interactive poll.
We can. We totally
Actually, we could.
Dude. There is a poll. There's a poll button.
Today it doesn't matter because XRP is destroying everything. So, by popular demand, next week we are doing XRP. All you haters can come over.
Oh my God.
I'm sure it's going to be riveting. All right. So next week.
Wait, hold on. What are you guys doing on Thursday besides New Year's?
New Year's. Not available.
I don't know.
Okay. Oh, I'm guessing because you have a game. Sorry, guys. We're not going to be doing XRP because the Chicago Bears are playing.
The Chicago Bears are playing meaningful football in December, guys. It doesn't happen ever. So let me get I thought it would be cool to kind of do like a New Year's Eve, like late night show. But I was just asking, I don't partake. I'm tired by 9.
I would be 2 sheets in the wind, so that won't happen on New Year's Eve.
I'm my group is very last minute and very indecisive, so I would have to update you guys the day of.
No worries. If for anyone else listening, I will be doing a live for New Year's, so
awesome.
Feel free to hop in there, and we'll just hang out.
That's awesome.
Ring in the new year.
Okay, so listen, what time do the Bears play?
Next week, I have no idea. We'll see what happens. They could flex the game. I don't know what it'll be. Don't worry about it. We'll still do Sunday regardless.
You sure?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because you were gonna miss it, and now it's XRP, so you're gonna be here for sure.
Oh, I can't. I mean, yeah.
I'm just pulling your chain. Are you wearing a Chicago Bears like varsity jacket right now?
Fuck yeah, dude!
Oh my God!
Look at that.
Wait.
Can't show it all the way to you, but yeah.
Let them know. Grown men are gonna cry. XRP finally gets its deserved spot. It's honestly insane that we've gone this long, because it's always been within the top 3 contenders for each week that you guys do vote on. But I think it's relevant to go from XLM to XRP the same way we did Chainlink to Quant. I think it was a great choice, guys.
Heck yeah, man. Guys, thank you for being here. I mean, it is we're here for you, right? This obviously helps. Let's go, dude. I need you to send me that hat immediately. No, I love that you guys are here. We do it for you, right? We don't get paid for any of this stuff. We're just a couple of guys up here interested in utility, interested in, the macroeconomics of things. And we talk about projects we like, we don't like. It's community based, voted on here. You guys got to witness that live, so that was really cool. But yeah, I mean, I love that guy gets to start, end the week just filling up my cup, learning just, a couple of things. I learned a bunch of stuff tonight. And That's what we do it here for, right? Create the conversation and have us learn something, right? So, and we get to have fun while we're doing it. So we appreciate you for being here.
Um, yeah, I echo that comment 100%. The I really, hey guys, for the 119 people still here, um, Canton next week, Canton or XPR, like let's challenge us. Those would be fun ones because we're not necessarily going to agree
Bro,
with each other.
I would respectfully choose Canton, just preliminary, based on the fact that it is a major, major powerhouse, and Meticulous is not yet. Could be, but
Yeah,
if we're looking at, like,
we want the drama. No, I'm
no,
kidding.
I don't want no drama.
But
I love the guy. There's some guys that I talk to regularly that love that stuff. It's just it isn't me. So
no, I'm aware. It's nice when we can push against each other. That's what I'm saying. Not that
what we really
I'm
need to do is Ethereum.
Yeah, I agree with that one too. That might have to be a three-parter though. We'll have to go 3 episodes.
Through what each version, each fork we'll go over.
There's not enough time in the day for that one. That might be a 24-hour marathon. We just can go all night long. You guys are gonna go to bed. You're gonna wake up in the morning. It's gonna be 7 a.m. and we're gonna still be going on it. Times Square, 589 light bulbs.
Matrix.
That's just crazy.
Who the fuck was the electrical engineer that when somebody said, "Do we really need 589 light bulbs? I think we could do it with 227." The guy was like, "No, it has to be 589." Who the fuck engineered that?
Who's in New
Mere
York right
coincidence.
now?
Don't
And
don't.
usually by Times Square when I see his videos.
Oh, fuck. Bully, did you do that?
What are you saying?
Are you an electrical engineer, light bulb?
Yeah.
Ah.
Are you the one? Bully's like,
Whoa.
hey, guys, I'm gonna pay for the 2026 out of my own pocket, but I have one condition.
We're gonna figure out a way to do 589 light bulbs. I know it only needs 227, but trust me, we need it.
Need smaller light bulbs.
It's gonna be the biggest celebration. There's
The
actually gonna
brightest
be
light bulbs you've ever seen.
two of them.
Yeah, guys, next week we're going to be covering XRP. I think that was a fantastic vote. Really, just kind of have the back to back with the Stellar one. Now that this comparison is kind of in your minds, I would challenge you or kind of entice you guys to over the next week to research more on it if you haven't, or if you have, continue to find your convictions in it, so that when you guys do have questions, we hopefully can address them. But I think it's going to be a really interesting week as well. I mean, we've done a lot of great projects back to back to back to back.
Yeah, agreed.
I love focusing on the utility, man. It's exciting to, consider the possibilities, and I think again, we're just kind of scratching the surface, right? So, it'll be fun to look back on this one day and see where this transpired, right? How this all shaped out.
Little like side note, when I was at Consensus in Toronto, they actually did a hackathon, Stellar, and that was my first hackathon experience ever. Really cool to see it. They're trying to get the young, fresh talent in their ecosystem, which is pretty damn cool.
Yeah, Sorry, I got a guy Ron over here is giving me the play-by-play.
I see it. Trust me. It's freaking amazing.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah, guys, I'm gonna log off just because I have to go try to breathe. It's been tough. I'm not gonna lie. So, guys, I just want to say on my behalf, you're gonna keep going. I love you too. Thanks. Great show,
Well, he's
everybody.
got that. He's got that sparkle in his
Oh,
eye. He might.
he's gonna keep going. He's gearing up for the Ethereum night. Guys, I just want to say thank you for being here on behalf of all three of us. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the 124,000 likes. You guys are awesome. Appreciate the questions that were asked. It's always better when you guys are interacting. Thank you for making yes, I want to feel better too. I appreciate it. Thank you. Aaron, no, yeah. I wish you guys all the best. Thank you. I'm going to leave.
All right. Thank you, Caveman. I'm going to disconnect you. Change. Run us out.
Hey, man. Listen, I appreciate every single person that is here. Remember that how you treat people is the only currency that really matters, guys. We are just normal, regular people, and we can have differences of an opinion, but we are a rarity amongst, I would say, this type of conversation. This isn't being had at the local diner or at the cafe or at work. Nobody cares. The fact that you guys do care speaks a lot. So, you know, there's not a lot of us right now. So we should be good to each other, regardless if we agree or disagree. But I appreciate you, man, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful Sunday and you have a kick-ass next week. Happy New Year, guys.
Thank you, brother. I don't even know what episode this was, but this was definitely a really fun one. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to see our deep dive into Xlm and Stellar. Next week, you're fucked. Grown men are gonna cry. It's finally the XRP deep dive. I think that a majority of the listeners are XRP investors, and I think that it's definitely one that the community has been asking for a while. So I'm very happy that we could deliver our information, our research, and our finds on this particular asset. Yeah, guys, you'll be able to find the Stellar Xlm Utility Unlocked episode on YouTube. Link is in my bio. I also want to say thank you guys. Over the last week, through the donations on the TikTok Live, we ended up raising $367 for Music History. He was a veteran in our community who was scammed out of $217,000. So through your donations, we ended up raising $367. And with the idea of that is hopefully to get 5, 10, 15, 20 other content creators to match that. So that $367 will hopefully turn into thousands of dollars for this guy. There is a linked tree if you guys do feel you want to participate in it. But I want to just say thank you. Thank you from me for participating in this and showing that the community is powerful when we move together. But also I'm saying thank you from Ray and his family. You guys really did restore his faith in the crypto space, and just hearing the gratitude from him and his family this Christmas season was so heartfelt, I guess. It really was an amazing thing. We as a community did something very special for this family. If you're looking for the linked tree, the video I posted, you could find that in the comment section. I had uploaded that into the comment section. I think it's the second video that I have posted behind the Utility Unlocked. You'll be able to see my thank you video, and then in there is the link for the linked tree. If you can't get that, you feel free to message me on TikTok, and I will send you the direct link tree to that as well. But guys, I want to say thank you to all of the moderators. We added Brooke Odyssey as our fourth moderator tonight, so chat, throw up some W's for Brooke Odyssey for stepping up to the plate for that. Brooke, thank you so much. And Brendan, Sarah, Ray, Todd, thank you guys for showing up night after night and doing what you guys do best, keeping the scammers out of the DMs of the viewers, as well as kind of engaging the community when it's needed. To everyone that was commenting, thank you guys. Awesome job on the vote for next week. Over 100,000 likes. We got 34 new followers. Man, this is fun. This is great. This is really great. If you guys are new followers, welcome. We primarily focus on utility-based assets with this long-term investing, and we try to provide you guys with real official sources, documentations, PDFs. If you guys are returning, welcome back. Hopefully you guys learned at least one thing new tonight. That is always our goal from these lives. I go live Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday. Wednesday and Friday I go live at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. On Sunday we do these Utility Unlocked shows at 8 p.m. Eastern. Guys, thank you so much for being here. And what if it all works out? What if it all works out, baby?